My name is Gabriel Cristofano, and I am going to be narrating my first short story, which is available on a website called Wattpad. This story is called Gwatolohoka, and the visions he knew were not real. And it was made May 21st, 2026. Narrated today, late night on June 2nd. A man named Gwatolohoka was among the people here in our area. He is of Native American ancestry, and none of his known ancestors were white. He maintained a complexion of that you would look first and assume he was just some Hispanic, except the way he would dress, and especially the name Gwatolohoka itself, would give away that he was not a Hispanic, but rather a part of the Cherokee Nation around here. Then, in that golden age, the Cherokee were dominant in this region. But you know what happened, and I and all my relatives and our neighbors lament over the oppression in history. For could they just not have just Christianized them as God would have wanted? It was something unnecessary, to say the very least. Anyway, recently, it was reported that he had strange visions because of some purchase he made online. Don't let his heritage fool you, for that man is easily consumed by technology. He reported allegedly that he saw words in the air, that he was able to talk to some people and hear people giving him private missions in these visions. And he even had fun and found pleasure in having these visions. I'd bet my life savings, all of it, that he would just hunt for bison and those animals and use all the parts of their body in some way. Their fur for clothing, blankets and tent coverings, their skulls for bowls, their meat to eat, and all else that would have been to follow if I knew only his heritage. But no, though he loved and embraced his heritage, he didn't act like a Native American. I feel that since others near our town that are of ethnic Native American descent, Cherokee or not, were the same case as Gwatolohoka, that now being a Native American is little more than just a heritage. Anyway, Gwatolohoka went to a gathering with some of his friends. Most of these friends were basically white and just considered American. I was there with him, as I am a friend of his. Gwatolohoka then told me, I can choose when to have a vision. I raised my eyebrows at that. Oh, really now? In our community, everyone had a reputation, and everyone was relatively high profile. Myself, albeit included in that list. Gwatolohoka was definitely also a high profile, popular man in this community of ours here in southwestern America. After being skeptical of Gwatolohoka's claim, he said, I'm being serious. Even if he laughed, he wasn't exactly the type of guy to make jokes and start making people laugh. He'd laugh at someone else's funny joke, that's for sure. Just then, our friend Richard came in and saw Gwatolohoka. Gwatolohoka, he exclaimed, ready to see another vision? And Gwatolohoka was excited, actually. Then he took out what happened to be a VR headset. That's just a VR headset, I remarked, and Richard said, yes, it is. Whether Gwatolohoka was aware that this was just virtual reality, I don't know. But what I do know is that Richard was also quite enthusiastic about technology, for he worked for the IT company in our area. After all, this you bought with your own money, right? He asked, to which Gwatolohoka responded with a yes. And then Richard replied, good. Anyway, I am going to show you how to ride a roller coaster in your visions. I whispered to Richard, you do realize that this is just literally just VR, right? Richard replied, relax. Let him believe he has lucid visions. I just went silent for a moment until I found no point in continuing to talk to Richard on this matter. I didn't have to make a big deal out of this, since after all, it's not like Richard was justifying robbing a bank or something. Gwatolohoka smiled, while the headset was on his eyes and just over his nose. I can see an island, he exclaimed. I had no idea what he was referencing until Richard said, oh, he must be on the roller coaster that is built on the tropical island. I responded with the sarcastic, that isn't even a roller coaster, it's a vision. And Richard just rolled his eyes playfully at me. I was good at taking things literally. I just knew it. He's doing such a good job, I must say. Would you like to join him? Now, I personally did not expect him to offer me that. I was just having fun seeing Gwatolohoka's reaction, and I personally did not have a VR nor the intentions of buying one in the near future. No thanks, but I'm happy you offered. Richard was just pushing it when he told me, "Come on! Don't you want to be able to have lucid visions too?" And all I just said was, unlike Gwatolohoka, I actually know what's going on. This is not exactly a lucid vision or whatever. It's VR. If I cannot do one specific thing in VR, I cannot have a lucid vision of it either. Richard had a neutral look on his face and just said, "Good point. I guess I just got carried away with the excitement of someone else over here being interested in VR. I completely forgot about the fact that not everyone does them." "It's alright," I replied. "There really is not a reason for me to dislike VR either, honestly. I mean, I don't know anyone who has motion sickness, and I don't have it either." Richard and Gwatolohoka were having some fun, though, so that was good. Eventually, I just walked out of the place we were hanging out and went to my car and eventually got home. Then while I got home, I got a text from none other than Gwatolohoka. "Call me an ambulance," is what it said. I was horrified. I did not understand what's happening. I called 911, not because I knew what was happening, but because if I didn't, it was possible Gwatolohoka would die. "911, what's your emergency?" I did not know how to form a coherent explanation. All I said was, "I need an ambulance at 309th Street at the get-together in Sequoia, Oklahoma." Eventually, I received from Richard a text about 30 minutes later saying, "Good job. Gwatolohoka told me that he'd quickly texted you and that you must have called the ambulance. You saved his life." I felt a sigh of relief reading that from Richard. I personally thought he'd shrug off whatever happened and just say, "VR isn't going to kill you." But if even he knew it was serious, it must have been something really bad. That, of course, was all I could evaluate at the time. Eventually, I managed to get to the hospital where Richard was, and so was Gwatolohoka in a hospital bed. "What happened?" I said in such an interrogative way. You could say I was just grateful I didn't join in. And Richard said, "After you left, I took out a big screen and connected what the VR was displaying onto it so I could see what he was seeing too." And he eventually chose to play this game called Walk the Plank, in which you go up an elevator, and when the door opens, you are going to see a wooden plank above the entire world, hundreds of feet below you, as you are high in the sky. If you do not stay on said plank, though it is just virtual, you experience falling down to the ground. As it simulates falling from a high place, chances are you could accidentally fall to the floor with the headset still on. I heard of Walk the Plank before, and that this could happen to you, but I did not know it could be fatal. "How did it get fatal?" I asked. And Richard replied saying, "In this particular case, Gwatolohoka hit the back of his head, and blood started coming out from the impact. I didn't know, however, that he was strong enough to text you with his phone. Gwatolohoka was hearing everything from where he was, and sat upright as if to talk to us. 'Don't worry,' he said. 'I still want to use that VR.' I was surprised, because he actually knew that it was not a lucid vision, it was just virtual reality. 'You knew it was just VR?' I asked, and Gwatolohoka said, 'Yeah, I heard you and Richard discuss the whole VR thing while I was playing a roller coaster game.' And after that, I responded, 'Oh yeah, I forgot you could hear us.' Richard said, 'Well, this is a one-time thing, but if you're going to play Walk the Plank again, Gwatolohoka, we're going to a room full of mattresses, or just somewhere that the floor is not hard.' And Gwatolohoka obliged. The end."